How did the Liberals steal the election? This is the mind of Mark Carney and how he helped orchestrate the most calculated political shift in Canadian history, the architect of control. At Goldman Sachs in the 1990s, Carney specialized in sovereign debt and long-range forecasting, skills that trained him to think in years, not quarters. You must understand that his special skill is designing strategies that span sometimes over half of a decade. As the governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, he gained something much rarer than influence: access to capital and to central banks, to the pulse of global policy. This wasn't about running for office. A man like that does not run for office. This was about surrounding it from every side. First, we build the social network and motive. In 2016, Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau appeared side by side at the World Economic Forum, where globalist elites shape long-term agendas. Also in attendance was 𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗖𝗧𝗜𝗍, who is a senior Chinese Communist Party official. 1 year later after this, Trudeau created 𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗧𝗜𝗡, which is the security branch that specializes in foreign interference, which also prevents all information from being shared to the public due to its strict security clearance, which perpetually hides all conflict from the public eye. And just 1 year after that, 𝗘𝗟𝗧𝗏 warned the Liberal government that the Chinese Communist Party was intent on interfering with Canadian election. It took 4 years for that information to reach the public. Intelligence documents in 2022 noted that Beijing had been funding almost a dozen Liberal candidates using covert funding of $250,000 while targeting conservatives with disinformation campaigns and identifying them as Trump-like. And their proficiency with psychological influence is surgical. Why would China interfere with Canada's elections? Because the Liberal policies align with Chinese interest, and we are going to prove it. Following steps outline how the election was stolen. From 2019 to 2025, immigration levels surged. We had 2.7 million newcomers. Citizenship was fast-tracked with policy changes. Benefits for immigrants and asylum seekers expanded. Where were they concentrated? Swing ridings, urban suburbs, exactly where the Liberals needed them. Studies including a Nanos poll cited by CTV confirmed that first-generation Canadians vote Liberal at over a rate of double that of Conservative. We ran a deep statistical analysis and included controls for errors, which concluded 1.8 million newcomers were eligible to vote. At an average 65% turnout, using a low estimate of 65% Liberal support, this was enough to flip almost 20 contested ridings. And if you adjust the current results of the election by removing the immigration leverage, the Conservatives not only win the popular vote, they win a majority. Immigration was never compassion, it was calculus. There was no logical reason to increase immigration when housing is exacerbated, services were stressed, and there was inflation. Yet it was all done under Mark Carney's economic advisory, and it worked because he is trained to look that far ahead, and those immigration level plans were adjusted as early as 2020. How did Pierre lose his seat? Pierre held that riding for almost 20 years. In 2022, the boundaries of his riding were redrawn. Liberal-leaning suburbs like Stitsley and Finley Creek were actually removed. Rural unfamiliar territories were added. On paper, it looked like it was still conservative, but demographically, it was something completely different. By 2025, the minority population in Pierre's riding increased to almost 30%. Voters in these areas are more urban and receptive to affordability messages as they receive more government benefits. The new boundaries included a lot of government-dense employee areas, and the urban turnout was record-setting at 81.5%, which is the highest in the entire country. Completely unexplained anomaly. 2025 election was the highest conservative popular vote since 1984. Yet, he lost his own riding. And to top that off, there were almost 100 names on Pierre's ballot. The genius work of the longest ballot committee added over 80 independents to Pierre's ballot. Some voters reported confusion, others admitted they actually selected the wrong candidate. Critics argue that this was no random act of democratic expression, but a deliberate attempt to fracture Pierre's visibility on the ballot and create a ballot-level chaos, and after 20 years, despite all the improved performance, he lost his seat. Statistically, that makes no sense. Lastly, Mark Carney's campaign promised to allocate $150 million of additional funding for CBC, which created an immediate and troubling conflict of interest, rewarding the very institution that is responsible for shaping public perception during the election. Simultaneously, 𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗖𝗧𝗏 flagged disinformation campaigns on WeChat, the Chinese state-linked platform, aggressively amplifying Carney's message. And major headlines portrayed Carney as a victim of Chinese interference, when in fact he was the beneficiary, and only one news station reported it correctly. That wasn't CBC. It's coming from all sides. How is Mark connected to China? The connection to Beijing predates his Canadian policy influence. While governor of the Bank of England, Carney held multiple closed-door meetings with senior officials from the People's Bank of China and Beijing's central leadership. These meetings seek to strengthen financial ties, laid the groundwork for future alignment. Later, he was appointed Justin Trudeau's pro bono economic advisor, a position of immense influence with no public accountability and unrestricted access to shape Canadian policy. Absolutely insane. In less than a year, he co-founded Glasgow's Financial Alliance for Net Zero, controlling over $130 trillion of private capital aimed at enforcing climate transition. 2021, Canada introduces the ZEV, Zero Emissions Mandate, requiring all vehicles by 2035 to be electric. In 2023, while serving as vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management, Brookfield Infrastructure Partners secured a $276 million loan from the Bank of China, strengthening financial ties with Beijing. At the same time, China was positioning itself to dominate the lithium-ion battery sector. This one's important. So in 2023, Carney took over as chair of Bloomberg. In the same year, Bloomberg's research division, NEF, highlighted a massive oversupply of lithium-ion batteries. China is the top provider of lithium-ion batteries at 75% market share. They also hold the record for the largest carbon footprint in the world. If those batteries didn't find markets, the ESG funds would collapse. Canada has already adjusted its policies, and it is absolutely imperative to maintain control over those policies, considering Bloomberg alone expects to increase their investment to $96 billion. I will also note in 2023, CSIS reported that there were indications that China would prefer a liberal minority, as this could be seen as more conductive to China's interest, and I don't know if they were able to actually pull that off. If that was their intent, voila, they are certainly surgical enough to achieve that. And the most obvious highlight that Mark is committed to Beijing occurred when Liberal MP Paul Chang suggested that his conservative counterpart be abducted and delivered to the Chinese consulate for a reward on a bounty, and Mark Carney would not remove him from office. And when the RCMP got involved, he stepped down on his own accord, and then Mark Carney replaced him with someone that has even stronger ties to the CCP. Peter Yuan, and his affiliation with Chinese institutions is even more pronounced. This is why Mark Carney did not just influence the election. He engineered it to preserve a geopolitical and financial pipeline from Beijing's factories to Ottawa's policy desks to Wall Street green finance portfolios that are in the dozens at this point. It wasn't ballot box fraud. It was strategic occupation. The 2025 election was not stolen overnight. It was orchestrated over years. And it wasn't stolen with ballots. It was stolen with capital, immigration policy, foreign interference, and strategically placed media propaganda, and one man's vision for global control. It is time to take it back. For the love of Pete, for all you liberals who argue that Mark should have his position because of his intelligence, he is way smarter than you think, and he's been operating a 3D chessboard over a span of over half a decade, and you have no idea what he's doing. He's so far ahead that you can't even see him. When he says or does something, I now have to sit here and wonder, what are the other 10 steps and where does it end up?